Sabin.
Hi, Anupama.
Hi, everyone. Sabin, I must say, you're looking great, and so is the background. And I'm sure we have Monika here. I don't know if Smita is here too. Smita and Archana.
Yes,
I
they're both.
am here, Anupama.
Hi. So nice to be amongst friends, and so nice amongst to be all the eclectic writers who have such a diverse worldly view. So it is a very good afternoon to you all. This is Anupama Jain logging in from India. I have my co-panelists also logging in from India, Monika, Smita, and Archana from the distant Singapore. A very good afternoon to you all. It is my utter happiness to be chairing this fabulous panel as part of this very important festival by Ananke. Thank you, Ananke. Thank you, Readomania. The topic at hand is navigating the future. Now, whoever knows what the future entails for us, right? Especially when the world is changing as we speak at such a rapid pace. So how best to learn about what the future trends are than to talk to these bunch of wonderful writers who have written across spectrums. Hi, Archana. Hi, Smita. Hi, Monika. How are you three doing today?
Hello, Anupama.
Hi, Anupama. Good afternoon. I am good. Hope you are also doing great. Hi, Monika. Hi, Archana.
So
Hi,
thank you
hi,
for having
Smita.
me. Lovely to see all of you.
Hi, Monika.
Hi.
So my very first question, I think I'll go in the alphabetical order. Archana, Monika, and Smita, if that's okay with all of you. So Archana, hearty congratulations on your latest book. It's a beautiful book. And
Thank you so much.
so my very first question to you is, what do you think is the scope of feminist writing in the future, given that on one hand, we are becoming very much more socially aware, and on the other hand, the societies are getting increasingly nationalistic and restrictive?
So before I start, thank you so much for having me, Ananke, and Sabin, thank you for this opportunity. Anupama, coming back to your question. So this struggle, between social awareness and equality on one hand, and cultural and religious repression on the other, I think has always been a constant factor. And in my opinion, it's like a wave, it just goes up and down. So citing an example, your question was just made me remember one particular thing about, which is right now in the news, which is the, US and its abortion laws. So if you see the history of this, till 1820, abortion was legal in the US. So your wave is up. Okay. Then between 1820 to 1973, it is illegal. It's been banned. Then 1973, once again, US Supreme Court upholds the, pregnant women's right to an abortion. We go up. And now in June 2022, the Supreme Court says hereafter the states will decide what they want to do. We are back down, and most of the states are now in the process of once again abolishing abortion and not giving a pregnant woman the right for it. So I think feminism itself has always been this one step in the front, two steps back. Each time we take a step in the front, again, there's going to be two more steps we jump back. And with this, I think feminist writing is something which is always going to be relevant. It's always important. And the scope for it is only been increasing because we have to once again reiterate to people, remind them from where we've come, and remind them where we need to go in the future.
How wonderfully said. Any quick thoughts on the same, Monika and Smita, before I move on to my next question?
So, Anupama, I would like to add to it. I absolutely, resonated with Archana when she spoke about the abortion wave and how it, we went one step forward and then two steps backwards. That is the state of feminist writing. throughout, we feminist writers have a long history of using literature as a tool for social change. So the power of literature to challenge and subvert dominant cultural narratives should not be underestimated. We had writers with like Virginia Woolf, who even in times when we were not there, explored themes like gender, role, sexuality, orientation through her work like A Room of One's Own and Mrs. Dalloway. In our country, we had this wonderful Bengali writer and activist Maishtra Devi, who through her work like Breast Stories advocated for the rights of women and other marginalized communities like Dalits. So this power of the pen is only going to increase in the future. And by continuing to put, we as writers, by continuing to put the power of pen to good use, we will find new ways to shape the future rather than just react to it.
Wonderfully said. Wonderful. What about you, Monika?
Yes. So I think writing has always proven to be a very powerful medium in bringing about social change. And I think, in fact, it is in restrictive societies that literature actually flourishes. And I feel like it's proven its mettle time and again in promoting not only liberty and freedom, but also actually encouraging freedom of thought. So I feel like some of the sharpest minds in the world have used words to fight oppression, and feminist writing has also held its own in this area. So take, for instance, writings of Maya Angelou, or even like the book Educated by Tara Westover. It's very powerful writing. But also take, for instance, books by Marjan Satrapi or Kari by Amrita Patil. On the surface, they seem like very simple graphic novels, but they bring to notice challenges, either political, ideological, or personal. And some of the books use humor, and sometimes it's actually quite crude humor too, which to just tell us about the day-to-day lives of women. So prose, verse, you have illustrations, whatever the genre, they all drive home the need for feminist literature. You may not always agree with what the author says, but I feel a well-written book sort of inspires a debate or a conversation. I think good books tell a story about a different place and a different time and are interesting. But I feel great books just connect with us. And no matter how different the setting is, the readers are involved. The story becomes personal, and ideas born, or a set notion of belief is challenged. And I think great literature transcends geographies, countries, politics, and even time, right? And I feel like readers and women all across the world sort of draw personal connection to the plight of women in a particular area, and are sometimes that much more equipped to handle their own personal life, conflict in their own life. And so, yeah, I think our society is definitely becoming more socially aware. And I feel that empathy is contagious. So the more we write, the more people empathize, and the more people are, kind and sort of.
What you said, transcending time. So my latest book I had written, I had taken some stories from very old classic, Katha Sarita Sarat. And the challenge was to make those stories relevant even today, because it is the social ethos, the social mores, everything was so different. So the challenge was to make those characters, the women characters, stand up for themselves, take ownership of their decisions, yet not veer off from the original story.
From the original story.
Yeah. So
that's great. Like maybe like the writings of Chitra Divakarun, where you're looking at an old story from a different angle, and that's neat sometimes.
It's from a modern lens. Traditional stories with a modern lens. Smita, since you write across mediums, you write blogs, you write short stories, you write books. So every 3 years, we see a tremendous change in the plethora of writing mediums. So what do you think are the skill set women should possess to navigate the future so that they are not left behind, in the whole rat race where even chatbots are joining to make it worse for us?
Yes. I do think, Anupama, that women need to be as versatile and adaptive as writers as we are in person in order to navigate the future. In particular, I think we need to focus on three things. First, a learning mindset to embrace new technologies and mediums. We should be open to write and create content for different mediums, social media, blogs. There are now these Twitter stories, and we are going to those 6-word stories, from there to writing to blogs, and then using the video and audio medium to communicate story like podcasts and other interactive media. So we should adapt across these different mediums apart from books and novels that we are used to writing. Second, we should invest in continuous honing of the craft of communication and the art of storytelling. Writing is a muscle, and muscles develop and stay strong with practice. Self-practice does help, but at periodic intervals, some expert trainers' intervention is required so that we take that jump. Similarly, regular courses, mentorship, connecting with other writers is required to hone our craft and develop a unique voice and perspective that can help us stand out in an increasingly crowded and competitive marketplace. Last, but definitely not the least, it is important for women writers to build strong networks and communities, both online and offline, in order to stay connected with each other, learn a lot, and take advantages of the opportunity. See, the dynamic world has its challenges, but it also gives us opportunity. The fact today that Ananke has brought you, Archana, Monika, and me in the same platform, and we are sharing our views with each other and the audience, is one of the steps in that direction. So to sum up, I would say adaptability, a learning mindset, and networking are the three mantras for women writers to adopt in the future.
Wonderful. Before I ask Archana's views on the same, also as you put it, Virginia Woolf, maybe some money in the bank and a room to write. Also, that won't hurt much. What do you say, Archana?
So I agree with Smita, we should have this learning mindset, and we should be okay about embracing new technologies. So, whether it's creating a website, or even it's important to know simple video editing skills nowadays.
Yeah.
You should know how to set up your camera for a Zoom meet like
Absolutely.
this. Yeah.
How much
Yeah.
time did we spend before joining here to just make sure that our cameras is
Exactly.
on the right angles and we are sitting on the right side of light?
Exactly. But at the same time, Anupama, one thing which I feel is that whether it's video or whether it's audio or whether it's a book, whatever it might be, though the medium changes, the base is storytelling. The power of storytelling is what is binding all these mediums together. So even though we've gone from writing journals and logs, to blogs and now vlogs, whatever it is, what binds a person to it has been the power of storytelling. So in my opinion, the medium, definitely it's a learning curve, but what we need to focus on is how well we are able to tell our stories. How well are we able to resonate with others in that? And if we can do that, I think we can, the medium is just another little more, another step to take.
What do you say, Monika?
Yeah, I think we're all speaking the same language here. I mean,
Exactly.
storytelling remains the heart of what we're trying to do here. I think the core skill set of any writer will always remain the ability to just be able to connect with their reader. But there's another thing that I think should also be developed and cultivated, not just by writers, but by people generally on the whole, where I think reading is a skill that needs to sort of be honed as well. Because, and even for writers to remain relevant, I think we should also immerse ourselves in past and contemporary ideas as well. But yeah, I think adapting to new media will sort of allow us to tap into current psyche. Where the readers are and what they're looking for right now. technology is definitely something we should not be shying away from. And I think with each generation, we are getting more and more comfortable using newer technology. And honestly, we cannot deny the reach of the internet these days. So yeah, I mean, I think we should be brave enough to embrace different media. And for instance, some genres such as poetry could sort of lend themselves so beautifully to another medium, right? Such as spoken word performances or podcasts. And I think while it may seem a little overwhelming to people who are used to being behind the laptop, computer, typewriter, or the pen, I mean, who better than the poet to read their own poetry? So maybe it's time to sort of embrace different medium as well.
But it is a tough call to be, this person who's adapted everything, and then you have to be constantly on your toes to be even relevant, and that takes a real hard toll at times on writing. So Archana, on this note, I want you to please dwell more. To navigate the future, we should also not only observe the trends, but also become active participants in shaping the emerging tomorrow. I mean, how do we do that as involved and evolved writers?
So, the change is one of the most constant things, especially when it comes to society and trends. There's always going to be new challenges, new changes, which, keep taking place. I do agree we need to, upskill and fit in with the trends, know what's happening in the market and all. But sometimes I feel it's okay to do something different too. You don't need to always fall in with the trends. For instance, I had written my second book, which is Tales from the History of Mathematics. Anupama, you may be able to remember it.
It's
So,
a wow book, if I even can say that.
So
Wow.
when I initially,
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I must add a context to it. When I said wow, it won the Value of Words Award. So that is the word play I'm trying here.
Thank you for that, Anupama. But it was a challenge to write it initially, because in one way it's a historical fiction. But normally historical fiction would be something which involves kings or queens or war or some important historical period. Here I'm writing about the history of mathematics, a subject itself which is scary for most people. Second, I'm going to, when you talk about something like history of mathematics, there are these huge, 6-7 volume treatises which have been written on this topic. And here I want to write a very flippant book which has short stories of hardly 700, 800,000 words maximum. Yeah. So it was a little scary, and I didn't know how people are going to react to it. And it was very surprising when it became a hit. Yeah. And then later, there was a lot of demand for me to do more of it. So we never know. Sometimes probably we, following the trends just for the sake of following the trend, or just because something is not existent in the market, you don't need to say no to some idea which you have, even if it doesn't fit with what is popularly there there around. If something calls out to you strongly, just go ahead and do it. But at the same time, if there's some new trend which is interesting you, for example, Monika, you spoke about poetry, spoken word poetry, and poetry in podcasts. I had, I think about a year back, I made a video of one of my poems and I put it up on my YouTube channel. It was such a fun thing to do, and very challenging too, because the video didn't have anything about me. So it was all, it was a video on bees, which I had to edit and adapt to make it fit with my words. Fun project, interesting, challenging, but at the same time, it was a different way of presenting my poetry. So embracing the trends is also good. Sometimes we could be the trend setter too. That's even better, I guess. Anupama, what do you say?
Wonderful. I'll only say wonderful. What do you have to say this to Monika?
I think if I may, I'd like to draw on from the art world. So for instance, the trend, it's not trendy to do portraits anymore, right? And maybe people are looking for modern art or abstract art. But I'll tell you, a well done portrait will catch your eye, right? So it doesn't necessarily have to be like Archana said. I agree with her. I mean, trends are great and you can catch on to them. You can ride the wave if you want, but you can also stay true to your craft and the message you are trying to say. So writing has to stay relevant, but over the ages, I think the heart of any story has been relationships. So while there are newer genres like young adult, or there are newer fiction types where suddenly there's a preference for vampire stories, at the end of the day, the story that is read and reread across genres and types is a story about somebody's conquest over some challenge, or about their love life, or about their relationships, right? We're still reading Tolkien's works today as we are reading great works written by newer authors on dragons and whatnot. So I think we must just stay true to the story we are trying to tell, and that we're the idea that we're trying to build on. And I think the rest should follow, trend or no trend.
Wonderful. What do you add? What would you like to add to this, Smita?
So I agree with Archana and Monika. See, trends will always be there. 5 years ago, something else was the trend. 5 years later, something else will be the trend. But as writers, we should definitely be aware of it. We need to be aware of the emerging technologies, social and political issues, because that underlines the cultural shifts which we may need to incorporate in our work. But at the same time, as writers, Anupama, we all have our unique platforms. We have a unique platform from which we need to share ideas and perspectives with the world. If this idea and perspectives resonates with the rest of the world, we should go ahead and do it. If this idea and perspective is different from what the crowd is saying, we should not be afraid to speak out on issues. Otherwise, we are not being true to our pen. As writers, we are in a unique position to advocate for positive change, and we should not shy away from using our voice, whether it is in support of the trends, to add to the trends, or to question and challenge the trend.
Wonderful. As you said, sometimes even if you're the lone voice, but also a lone voice which is against the trend, sometimes invites unsolicited and unwanted rancor and some harsh words. At that time, if you believe, if you're true to yourself, as you said, sport a thick skin and march on, because eventually you need to sleep right in the night, right? Monika, my next question to you. What do you think the future holds for feminist publications or blogging sites? Because, you keep hearing that core feminist publications are slowly shutting down because eventually it's all about money, right? And somehow, even though, so many advertising campaigns, they want to showcase that they are on the right side of the right thinking. Eventually, they're not going the whole way. So, they just skirt around, they just touch base, and then when the ruckus hits the roof, they are back, and the funding eventually is petering down. So do you agree with that, or do you see hope?
So you have touched upon the economics of the business point of view of feminist publications. I'd like to sort of talk about the need for feminist publications, where today feminist publications are the ones who are heralding, and they're advocating for gender equality. And today the need is highly, it's very important, it's highly necessary to have such literature. But honestly, I do sort of hope that as society becomes more aware, maybe the nature of feminist publications may change, where we no longer need to fight for gender equality. I know it sounds like a very utopian future, but I do hope. But right. I feel that feminist Publications, however, will remain vital and they will continue to play an integral role in society only because I feel women always bring a different perspective to any issue. So even if it's not gender equality and we're not fighting oppression against women, maybe it's just some other world issue where women have a different point of view. And I really hope that such publications stay in the future and they ensure that that point of view is read by millions. I always know that women do bring a little more sympathy and empathy into world politics as well. So I think topics may change, but the need for the publication remains. And coming back to your economics, I really hope that the advertisers realize that too. So
True.
I mean, we are half the population. So
And I think for us to survive as a race, climate change is the next biggest burning topic. And that's where we as women, the half of the world, has to embrace and fight for it. Otherwise, the earth or the world as we know might be history, right? Archana, your thoughts?
I think one more threat for feminist publications, apart from the economics of it, has been that fundamentalism is right now on the rise in many countries around the world. And the voices of women, are being silenced, and at least they are making all the efforts possible to silence it. Though they've not everywhere have they been as successful. Already the economics of something like a feminist publication is on a difficult path. Add to it political crisis and opposition and book banning and all these things. It makes it even more difficult for them to survive, frankly. It's a sad picture, but I think, again, the only way to fight it is by writing more, despite whatever may be the economics of it. And reading more too, encouraging these kind of publications and buying the books, reading these authors, spreading the word. All this, I think, would really help for the future of feminist publications.
Amen to that. Write more, read more, support. Couldn't have put it better. Smita?
So the challenges always remain, Anupama, as you went to the economics of it. And Archana spoke about, the potential backlash that may come from whenever we put our voices out there. But at the same time, there is a need for such platforms and blogs. These digital platforms have democratized access of writers and readers to each other. And as long as writers continue to use them to create and distribute their own content and to build communities of like-minded readers and supporters, I would say that the future is optimistic. Of course, there will be that competition for eyeballs. There will be backlash from people who oppose the messages. There will be, it's a cluttered world. And that's not only in case of feminist blogs, that's the case for all businesses. It's always the survival of the fittest. You need to adapt and grow. Those platforms, those feminist blogs that stay relevant to the times, that engage with the readers, that build a community around them, there is always a place for them. And I hope they do survive, because they do have a crucial role in shaping public discourse around issues related to gender equality, orientation. And these platforms hold individuals and institutions accountable for their actions. So unless they are there, there is a large lacuna which will be difficult to get filled up. So there is a need, and because there's a need, I hope something will come up and the future goes more optimistic than we see it today.
Yes, optimism is the key, rather than be very darkly prophetic and about the doom that awaits us. On this small note, I wanted to add something. So before ChatGPT became such big theme, it was just because I have computer geeks in the house. So I managed to get access as a login long back. So just as an exercise, I had mentioned asking the bot to write some stories on the romantic genre, comedy, and murder mystery. Rest be assured, we are still going to thrive because it put up such terrible stories. The stories were so bad, even my students of grade 6 can do better. So, in the future, as Monika has said, the crux of the matter is storytelling. The crux of the matter is empathy. The crux of the matter is making sure your voices are heard, right?
Correct.
So, Archana, I want to ask you about your latest book. I read it, and it's a beautiful book. I read it at one go. So, how have you molded Arna? Arna is the protagonist of her latest book, to keeping up with the times, separating behavior and thinking from her mother. And if you were to pen a sequel, say 5 years down the line, how would Arna evolve?
So just to give a little bit of background for the others, so Arna is the protagonist of my novel Sleeping Dogs. It's a thriller, and it's a novel about Arna trying to find out the reason behind her mother's death, which happened about 12 years ago. So Arna is this, pretty and feisty, spicy 21-year-old girl who has dreams to become a fashion designer. And her father, a traditional Tamilian chartered accountant, does not consider fashion designing as a career choice. And so the background of this is that Arna's mother dies when she's about 8 years of age. So Arna, though she hasn't really, been much with her mother's name is Devika, though she hasn't really lived much with her mother, but still, they both are so similar in their thoughts, their desires, and their need to carve their own path, some choice for which they can, some purpose for which they can happily dedicate their lives to. That's what both of them want. But the difference here creeps in that Devika wants to do it with the blessing and support of her family, which never happens. So she's crushed and shackled, and she never gets to really do all she wants to. But on the other hand, Arna does not bother about anyone. So she does not care about what others think. She goes ahead and does it despite whatever her parents or her father's opposition or her family's objections are. And one important thing over here is that most of the time our families don't do this to us because they want to dominate us or something. Usually it's, they view women as the weaker sex. So they need to be saved. They need to be protected from what is again a mystery, but that's what other members do feel. So, they stop a woman from proceeding on her path or carving out her own career, which is something which I wanted to highlight through the book. And I also wanted to show the difference in how this changes over the decades. So there is this interesting scene where, Arna's mother, that is Devika, she speaks to her own mother, and she tells her that I'm feeling so stifled in this marriage. And she gives the example of her husband buying a house for her without taking her on house hunting, or, he doesn't ask her opinion on the house or anything. He just goes ahead and he buys a house for her. So when she tells this to her mother and she says, nothing, I've not had any opinion on this. So what her mother responds is that, how can you keep cribbing like this? Your husband bought a house for you. You should be happy about that, right? So, see, so-and-so, this person is getting, beaten up by her husband. Don't complain. Be happy about what you're having. So for Devika's mother, the fact that her son-in-law cared for the daughter itself is enough. She didn't expect him to treat her as an equal. For her, marriage is not an equal relationship. But Devika wanted more in her relationship. So when it comes to her daughter, I'm very sure if she had been alive, she would have fought for the freedom of choice for her daughter. You know. So somewhere when the stance that a mother takes in her rights or in her marriage plays a very important role in molding her children. I'm not even mentioning daughter, I'm mentioning children, because seeing a powerful mother can shape a son too. It's not just a daughter. So 5 years down the line, Anupama, your question, in fact, makes me wonder where, Arna would be. So now she knew how to fight for her rights, win her family. So 5 years down the line, I didn't have an idea of writing a sequel, but if I do write one, I see her not fighting for her rights only in her family, but I also see her fighting for her rights in her fashion industry too. I think that's also a place where feminism has always played a very vital role. I see her using fashion as a tool to bring about social change. She will use clothes to make her statement in feminism.
Very nice.
And let's see, maybe you gave me an idea.
Very nice. As I say, raise your son right, because the daughters are already at fight. This has been one of the strongest statements that I always put out there. You read my first book, Archana. My first book came about 5-6 odd years ago. The protagonist there also is from a South Indian background, like I am. It comes from a very strict background, and she goes to the world and she undergoes such a metamorphosis. But again, I felt at that time, what choices she made were again ahead of her times. But she fell a lot, but she learned to rise up, dusting herself. So eventually that is what the message is. I mean, have a mind of your own. You're going to fall multiple times, but that's okay. We have got the sisterhood. One such sisterhood is what we are already being part of, aren't we?
I love how, we all have probably a common theme which binds us.
Yes.
Though our genres are so different. So mine is a thriller and yours is a humor. But, I loved your book, Anupama. I must say that. It was a real enjoyable treat of a read. Thank you for writing it.
Thank you so much. The sequel is almost ready. So keeping my fingers crossed. So, Smita, what do you think are the future trends of companionship? Is your Sonia a woman of today or tomorrow?
That's an interesting question you asked me, Anupama. So just for giving a bit of context to others, my book, A Price to Love, revolves around Sonia, who is this ambitious career woman who seemingly has it all. A good educational degree, a great high-paying job, a loving husband by her side. And yet there is something that is missing and she is in the quest of it. And what is this? What is that thing that is missing in her life is what the book is really about under the garb of a contemporary modern take on relationships. And to your question about future trends of companionship, Anupama, technology and the evolving world has led to broader cultural shifts, and no aspect of our life has remained untouched from it. And the same goes for companionship. Some trends that are already there in our society in a subtle manner, I foresee that they would become even more prominent in future. The most prominent one being an increased focus on self-love.
Yeah.
As our understanding of mental health and wellness evolves with time, there is likely to be a growing emphasis on self-love and self-care as essential components of the relationships we have with those close to us, with even social relationships and casual relationships. In fact, I've alluded to this trend in the other way around in my book, A Price to Love, where I have shown the consequences of the absence of self-love in interpersonal relationship, despite, as I said, my protagonist Sonia seemingly have it all. So lack of self-love had consequences for her as well as people around her who actually love her. And yet it is this absence of self-love which led her to take certain actions which had its own consequences. The second thing that I see is the blurring of boundaries. Boundaries would blur between online and offline relationships and between traditional and non-traditional relationship structures. People will rely a lot less on FaceTime to form deep connections with others maybe they have never met in person. And online communities become a more important source of companionship and support. There may be more openness about open relationships. Uh, Irrespective of all of these, the trends can vary, but I see a growing recognition that different people have different needs and desires when it comes to companionship, and no one size fit all approach to relationships will work. It will vary from person to person. And the third thing that I see is increased emphasis on shared values and personal growth. I think there would be increased emphasis on finding companions who share similar values and beliefs. As individuals who are short on time, we will become more selective about who we choose to spend our time with and will prioritize relationships which are based on mutual respect, a shared sense of purpose, and where we feel challenged intellectually, emotionally, and creatively. Some of these trends, some of these things that I mentioned here, I have explored this, some in a more overt manner like self-love, some in a more covert manner like personal growth in my book. So to your other question, whether Sonia is a woman of today or tomorrow, I would like to say that she is a representation of both today and tomorrow. Such ambitious women have been present in society for a long, long time. However, it is only now that they have started to get chronicled in literature, films, and other media. As
Wonderful.
society continues to evolve and progress towards gender equality, we are likely to see more and more women like Sonia who will not compromise on their professional careers and break down conventional boundaries while delicately balancing personal relationships. It is because that Sonia is a product of our times that I would say that A Price to Love seems to have resonated with the readers, with its first print run sold out within 3 months of its publication. At the same time, is Sonia also a trailblazer, carving out a path for future generation for women to follow or not to follow in that case? I will leave it to the readers to judge. But yeah, the signs are encouraging, and I'm happy that such a woman who is a product of our times and yet underrepresented, the story seems to have resonated.
Excellent, excellent. I think we are all, as writers who have gathered here, are definitely proponents of self-love, and that oozes out of our writing. We also have and found partners who, share similar value system, and who create ecosystem for each of us to flourish. Eventually, that is the goal, right? Monika, your core, I'm talking about your latest book. For that latest book, your core readers have been the youngsters. So how have you incorporated ethos in your writing to convey the changing trends, or to, gently nudge your readers towards the, for lack of better word, the right direction of thinking?
So just a little bit about my book. I've written and illustrated it myself. It's called In the Woof of Time, and it is an adventure book for middle graders, which is 8 to 12-year-olds, in which the detectives are basically a bunch of kids from a book club. I set out to write an out-and-out fun suspense books for children, in which it's a group of children who attempt to solve a mystery. the idea to base it on a book club was sort of inevitable because since 2020, when the pandemic struck, I was fortunate enough to host a book club for my son and his friends. And every month, a huge gang of kids would log into Zoom and we'd spend hours discussing the book of the month. And so this book was sort of almost a natural culmination of all those hours that I spent with those kids playing detective. In my mind, I was narrating my story to those children, to my book club, right? And I was writing with those children as the potential readers in my mind. And the book club allowed me to revisit not only all the foreign classics we grew up with, like your Blytons and Roald Dahls, but also introduced me to so many newer authors, both Indian and foreign. And I realized that the book I wanted to write stories that would include motifs that were familiar to my book club kids, where they were in their own urban setting in contemporary India, Asia, as we know it. And I hope to write in a way that was a whole lot more relatable to them with the issues they face and the friendships they have. So the setting is urban India. And I've tried to stay true to the era. And although certain readers across the world would be able to relate to the characters, they're regular school kids with regular restrictions also that they face at home, like curfews and chaperones. These detectives don't go gallivanting off by themselves in the middle of the night. They do use technology, but again, within the boundaries set by their parents in interest of their safety. So I've tried to keep it sort of appropriate for the age of the readers I'm writing for. And at the same time, the children are quite independent, and the way they solve the mystery should hopefully teach the readers how to use logic and critical thinking. But like I said, I mean, I've always felt like the core of every book or story is human relationships. And so I've tried to sort of also incorporate the responsibilities that friends have towards each other, or that children have towards the welfare of animals. And I've tried to do hopefully all this without being too didactic in the book. I didn't want to be too preachy. I wanted it to be fun. But I also realized that, I mean, there's so many ways you can tackle current issues without actually it being a book about issues, just by having the girls solve just as many clues as the boys. You know, just that they're equal participants. The parents are playing an equal role. I mean, there's so many gender equality issues you can address as well without that being the theme of the book. So, I mean, it's been fun writing what I felt was like an appropriate book for the children that age. But I wanted to keep it fun because I think while introducing new concepts, you can keep it fun. And then they also leave with some ideas that they can mull over once the book is done. So I hope I've managed to do that in the book.
As we have two things in common with your latest book, Monika. My latest book I had written for young adults. So I had done the illustrations for that as well. And a selection of that curated collection of those stories was picked up by major schools in Gurgaon and Jaipur as the supplementary reading. So yeah, and what appealed to the teachers, as you have said, is the stories convey the meaning without being didactic or preachy, or without ramming the agenda down the throats. So I think that is one more common thing between us two. Sabine tells us that we have 4 minutes more to wrap up. So maybe I'll quickly push one question, and please give your views as quickly as possible. Okay. Do you think with passage of time, the etching and sketching of women will become sharper with more diverse dimensions? Will they move away from simpering and, waiting to be protected women to sharp and with multiple diverse personalities to her? Archana?
You mean the women in fiction, right?
Yes,
How women are portrayed in fiction.
Yeah, women penning the women in fiction.
Okay. I think women penning women in fiction has always been, very sharp, very edgy. And only only those that have been sharp and edgy have stood the test of time and been in our minds. I'm not sure if the others have stayed with us even, till now.
Yeah, the grey woman is very attractive somehow.
Yeah, yes, definitely. And the grey woman has always been there. The Tolstoy's Anna Karenina is the one who, jumps to my mind immediately. Such a traditional Russian society, aristocracy, to pen such a woman and to show, to make the reader feel for her is something amazing. And, not just Anna Karenina, any women character who is penned, unless she is out there doing things, maybe not always making the right choice, maybe she makes mistakes, she does fall, she does get up, but having her do something, that action and giving her that edge is only been what has endeared her to us as readers. And it's definitely, with every social change, the women whom we write about are also going to change. They are also going to question, they are also going to fight for things. And that's what makes them so interesting, I guess.
Excellent. Smita, I know your Sonia is already, as you very lucidly put, she's a woman of today and tomorrow. So maybe your next creation will we see an edgier and more with, oozing with self-love from every pore and, calling what is hers rightfully, forcefully in your next edition for Sonia, or will Sonia mellow down with the world?
Oh, I don't see her mellowing down. I don't know about the next edition, but I don't think in my future works I ever see a woman protagonist mellow down. And maybe for a certain period, yes, but definitely not throughout. I think as women, see, the portal needs to change because people resonate with characters that are realistic. And those mellow down, simpering women, they may be there, but there are also women like us, right, who are not afraid of speaking our minds. As writers, we need to avoid stereotypes. Characters that are overly simplistic or one-dimensional may not stand the test of time. To remain relevant and better navigating the future, we need to write complex characters having flaws. All of us, are not pure black and white. All of us have some gray matter in us. And we need to aim to bring that nuances in our characters so that readers resonate with us and read our works.
Wonderful. So I may be wearing black and cream, tending towards white, but gray is what is most appealing. Monika?
Yeah, I don't somehow see women writers being able to write women protagonists that are not strong women. I think even if women were to portray a woman as weak or meek or not able to stand up for herself, the way they write it has the reader always questioning why isn't she doing it, so you're not writing a two-dimensional character where sort of somebody's being walked over and you're taking it for granted. So I think the more women write and the more women we get to be readers, there are always going to be strong women characters around. So
Fantastic. It was, I hope whoever has joined us from various parts of the world have enjoyed this conversation as much as I enjoyed chatting with these fabulous ladies who have penned such diverse works. Thank you, Sabine. Thank you, Ananke, for making this chat possible. Thank you, Readomania, for penning, for letting us pen our thoughts and making this chat very possible.
And thank you, Anupama, for being such a great moderator. Thank you, Sabine, for giving us all the opportunity to be here on the Ananke platform to share our views.
Thank you, Sabine. Thank you.
Thank you so much for this great, vibrant talk. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Sabine, I wish you the very best for the future events that will unfold through the evening, and we hope to see you tomorrow again.
Absolutely, absolutely. Looking forward to that session as well.